Welcome, welcome. My name is Allison Dewey. I am the Director of Education at the League of American Bicyclists. I'm going to share my screen now that's in presentation mode. Okay, can everyone see that? Okay, great. So hopefully everyone's in the right session. This is Preparing to Ride, Developing Age-Appropriate Bicycle Education Curricula. Hold on. I want to make sure this is being recorded. Did everyone get a note that this was being recorded? Okay, good. All right. So welcome. We have a great panel for you today and talking about developing age-appropriate bike education curricula, excuse me. And I'm going to go over a few housekeeping things, and then I'm going to turn it over to Rick Holt to speak a little bit about his experience with early childhood education, bicycling education, and then he's going to introduce our panelists. So, no. There we go. Can everyone advance slide? Okay. All right. So in joining the conversation, please, in social media, please use hashtag BikeSummit22. That's a great way to bring more people into the conversation out in the greater world and talk more about the session, what you've learned, your insights. So please use hashtag BikeSummit22. We're going to try and direct all of our questions and comments to the Zoom chat function. There's also the Whova platform in which the National Bike Summit is using as an agenda host. Also has a lot of great social interaction features, which can be useful after the session. But as in this next 45 minutes, we're going to try and direct everything to the Zoom chat function. Just for reference, please put your name in your name box and your pronouns. Also maybe where your hometown or where you are and your organization. I know it's kind of a lot, but what you want people to kind of know about you. I will be turning on the live transcript as soon as I stop sharing my screen. That's always kind of the reminder for me when I see it on this housekeeping screen. Once that turns on, you'll be able to turn it on or off. Then we'll have questions and answers at the end. Also, a big thanks to our sponsors. We couldn't do this without them. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Rick Holt. And he is the co-founder and researcher at Early Childhood Mobility Coalition. I got it. Early Childhood Mobility Coalition. Thanks, Rick. And he's going to say a few words and then introduce our speakers for the panel. Take it away, Rick.
Okay, we'll get this thing up. So welcome everybody. As Allison mentioned, I'm formerly with George Mason University. Now I'm a co-founder and a researcher with Early Childhood Mobility Coalition. And really, why we're here to talk about this today, it's extremely important. There's a large group of children. You look at 0 to 8, about 35 million kids in that range. And it's really important we take a look at the type of opportunities they get. Do they have access to bike education or bikes? And focus on the equity aspect of it too, because it's really important for their development and growth. And the reason we're focusing on a lot today in the curricula is the fact that early childhood bicycling education or early childhood education in general is a little bit different than what we do for adolescents, teens, and adults. And so we need to focus on that gap right now. The League has a great program for youth and for adults, but we need to really go back into that. And biking itself for kids, it's really shown to be very beneficial, not only from a physical activity standpoint, but from many other social and emotional aspects, but also safety awareness too. If you look at the research on this, one of the things I was involved in before with George Mason was looking at the DC Vision Zero Traffic Garden grant program, where we did 2 traffic gardens in DC looking at using balance bikes with preschool kids in traffic gardens. At that point, we were looking, there wasn't a lot of research around balance bikes or kids in traffic gardens or any of the combination thereof. Recently, though, we've seen a lot more of that research come out and showing that cycling is a foundational skill for children, for locomotor type of skills to grow that. And very important, we try to get it earlier on. And more research actually shows that balance bikes can help us get kids on bikes earlier, much earlier, almost a year earlier than what they could do on training wheels. And then more recently, we've seen some research come out of Portugal that talks about the need for a more comprehensive curricula around how to address the education with that group to make sure we're actually addressing it in a developmentally appropriate manner. Now, from my standpoint, my research on the left here are a few of my research subjects, also known as my granddaughters. So I do bike the talk. And so the research we're focusing on a lot is balance bikes and bikes, children getting cycling early. Also family cycling, because that's about that 0 to 8 age group, the mobility. So if we can get that age group in a more mobility focused area, we think we can do a lot better as far as their development and also many other outcomes, so multi-purpose. And then just getting them active in places like traffic gardens or other spaces where they can use that combination of cycling or other mobility to be more active, get more focused, and learn safety awareness. So with that in mind, I wanted to introduce the speakers today, and they're a very qualified group of people who are going to give you a great insight into the curricula and some programs out there that we've actually looked at in the past. So Dr. Ellen Rogers is the Associate Dean of the College of Education and Human Development at George Mason University. She previously served as a principal planner with the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. Her scholarship focuses on research and evaluation methods, the influences on and outcomes of participation in leisure and physical activity, including biking, social and environmental psychology, and research-informed community and park planning. She is a fellow with the Academy of Park and Recreation Administration and an affiliate of the Early Childhood Mobility Coalition. Dr. Drogan Rogers has found joy in the spirit of collaboration and impact stemming from work on the DC Traffic Guard project and focus on developing young bicyclists. Then we have Maya Goldstein. Maya earned her master's degree with education from the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. She founded the Kids on Wheels program in 2015, combining her passions for cycling and early childhood education. The program is now an integral part of the British Columbia Cycling Coalition and is being offered in early childhood settings in both Vancouver and Victoria. Dr. Marierose Mbinack has worked with the District of Columbia Public Schools for over 20 years. After 2 decades as a health and physical education instructor, she transitioned to a role as manager of health and physical education in the district central office. In her current role, Dr. Mbinack designs and implements professional development experiences for teachers, teacher leaders, and school administrators to address content standards and implement research-based best practices within the health and physical education field. In addition, she was also instrumental in playing a part in the DC Vision Zero Traffic Garden project, getting children on bikes in those traffic gardens on balance bikes. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Rogers and let her take this away.
Ellen, you're on mute.
My apologies.
There we go. Hi, Ellen. We can hear
Hi,
you.
everybody. You would think I would do this like every day and would somehow get it straight. Good afternoon, everyone. And if you're calling in and zooming in from other locations, it could be good morning or good evening for that matter. I'm delighted to be here today. It's been a wonderful conference. My role today is to set the stage for the really extraordinary programs that have been developed by Maya in Vancouver and by Marierose in DC, and to clue in everybody about the development, because these were intentionally developed with an eye towards the capabilities of their participants and how bike education would elevate these abilities. Brian Canavari noted yesterday, we must start them early into developing bicyclists, and that's so true. And to do that, we first must understand the development and the developmental process and dimensions of early childhood. Whether working with a single child in a family, learning to eat or to read or to ride, or preparing to do so with a group, camp, or family, a neighborhood, a religious order, or in a physical education classroom, the first realization is that every child is unique. Children learn and grow daily. They do it at their own speed and in their own sense of time. And I always say we must meet them where they are. And to do that, we need to understand how they have and how they will develop. So over the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about the dimensions of development, what influences development in a more global way, the stages of development, what can we expect at each stage, and then how we enhance education for biking or for other topics based on and for development. Now, there are countless theories that focus on different dimensions of development, but there are three that everyone has in common. And that is, it is widely recognized that there are physical development, or in this case, biological. We talk about sorry, my screen just went a little bit wonky there. Cognitive or intellectual development, how we think, how we process, and social emotional development, how we feel. Now, developmental theories focus on the human capabilities again. And when we talk about learning, it's really focused on how do we teach or design programs that focus and facilitate on children realizing their potential and capabilities. So what are the influences on development? Well, there's maturation. Everybody goes through the stages. It happens on their own time and on their own terms, and we mature physically, intellectually, and socio-emotionally. It really is that unfolding of inherited potential. And again, it looks different for every child. And so to teach in a group or to think about programming can be a bit of a challenge. There's also active experiences, and there are ample opportunities for those of us on this call on the Zoom and attending in person, where we can manipulate the environment, a classroom, a playground, a park, to help the child thrive and grow. There are opportunities for challenge, and that's the key. Some are ready very early, some it takes a while, but the key is to provide those opportunities for challenge, regardless of health and their abilities. We know development is influenced by social interactions, those that people have with each others in the environment. That can be a family, friends, classmates, relatives, just strangers as we interact with our daily lives. And we must understand that our developmental processes are greatly influenced by cultural and situational contexts. There are roles that are assigned to children based on where they live, the families in which they are raised, and they are influenced by cultural realities. They read, they watch television, they share with others, and it's been noted several times in multiple presentations, the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that can't be discounted when we think about how children develop. Now, what do we expect over time as they develop? From birth to 2 years old, cute little one, we talk about infancy, and actually it's that sort of sensory motor stage. Everybody at those earliest stages learns to eventually roll over, crawl, pull themselves up. Some will stand, some will run, Some will learn to self-propel on different bikes and the like, but they learn through their 5 senses. They also believe in object permanence. Things are there, and when they appear to disappear, they eventually learn that they're still available and they're still present. Like the peekaboo game. I'm physically here, I look like I go away, but I'm really still here. It's also a period of dependence on others. Think about it, in infancy and through that second year of life, you are fully dependent on others. They are imitators. They have the ability to copy behaviors. And as a result of that, it's the time for us to think about what do we do to model. And I will say, in that age range, there is a sense of security. And when they feel safe and secure, it nourishes that desire to learn. And admittedly, curiosity then fuels that drive to exercise their physical skills and to get moving. From 3 to 6 years old, and there's no magic numbers of this, these are just general ranges. We talk about early childhood. This is a pre-operational. Children move from cautious movements to fluid rolling and tumbling and running and skipping, and truly the ability to self-propel, just like in the picture. They engage in perceptual centration. They can focus on one aspect of the object. And because of that, when we design programs for this age range, you can't throw in the kitchen sink. It must be one piece at a time because that's all that they can capture at first. It's a wonderful time of creativity and fantasy. And as a result, no matter what is developed, we need safe spaces and an environment in which individuals can safely explore. They have tremendous language and communication skills that develop really rapidly during this age range, including symbolic representation. So they see a sign that's red and 6-sided, and they learn to know that's stop. And then they read and they recognize it's stop. And they suddenly have the understanding that that means I physically have to do something. They understand the symbols and they begin to embrace it through action. During this time, it is a great time where children learn to be endearing and trusting and affectionate and hungry for learning. And it is just as equally a time where egocentrism sets in, where they need assistance with aggression, self-centered impulses, and again, a safe space with awareness of those around them helps them through that. And this is a time where there's a belief of irreversibility. When I do something, it has permanent actions. So if I don't stop, the imaginary train might hit me and I don't have the ability to go through the process again. If I fall, it's a bit more dramatic than it might be in another year or two when I fall and get up. 7 to 10 years, and this is the last age bracket I will speak about, is really middle childhood. There's continued physical development, and these days, many children are starting to reach puberty. They are changing size, they are awkward, and because of that, their ability to build upon the activities they've previously learned sometimes need a bit of relearning. It's a time of hands-on thinking and doing, receptivity, and they are sponges. They rationalize and engage in pros and cons. Where do I cross? And if I cross here, and it's not a crosswalk, what are the implications of what might happen? They believe in reversibility. What I do is not permanent by and large. And so as a result, they begin to engage in high risk activities. In the previous picture, or in pictures you'll see, many of our colleagues have built small ramps or rubber and tar sort of bumps. We can build up in a safe and operational way for high risk. And because what happens is not irreversible. They also internalize admonishment. So this is a time for support. It allows independence, yet there still needs to be that oversight. They move away from self-centeredness to a sense, and they're part of a community. So building together, biking together, learning together has so much more meaning. But we also have to understand kids develop at different paces. For many, they will play and learn from formal instruction, and language and community skills will develop. But some will retain those elements of early childhood, including pretend play. So building spaces where they can continue to engage in the pretend that leads to reality is really important. Beyond this, they move into early adolescence, late adolescence, when peer groups mean everything. So how do we use any of this to enhance education based on the way they've developed? And how do we capture it for development? We develop appropriate content and delivery methods, felt boards and scripts, musics and songs for the youngest, age-appropriate lesson duration. We have very, very limited patience for time. We repeat, we repeat, we repeat, we challenge, we understand their individuals, and we begin to build those risk elements. We engage in culturally sensitive practices, whether it's character development in the books that are purchased or the materials that are used, and contextually relevant, that we meet them where they are, that people look like them, understand their circumstances, and build that awareness of others. We take the time to assess and research. Are they hitting developmental milestones? Are they building interrelationships? Are they building, in turn, cognitively, rules and regulations, safety awareness, risk? Are they building socially, emotionally, self-confidence, self-efficacy, self-esteem, a sense of perceived freedom and locus of control, that they're in command? Overall physical activity, we know, influences how we think and how we feel. And I included community well-being because we know people will bike as play, they will bike for recreation, and they will bike for transportation. And as Mayor Scott noted yesterday, we are responsible for creating access. Therefore, we expand the culture, we expand the community, and we move on through biking. And with that, I know we're holding questions till the end, and it's my pleasure to turn this over to Maya Goldstein to highlight her exceptional bike ed program in Vancouver, British Columbia. Am I sharing? I'm done.
Thank you so much. That was a great presentation, and it's such a great honor to be here and to present at the National Bike Summit. I'm going to talk about the program that I created here in Vancouver, BC. I would like to start with a land acknowledgement, as Vancouver is situated on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tualatin nations. So that's a question I get being asked often, where the idea of creating the Kids on Wheels program came from. I was doing my master's at education at the University of British Columbia quite a few years ago, and I was working in a few early childhood education settings. And what I noticed is that active transportation was not a big part of daycare activities. There were car and trucks during inside play. There were word carpets for cars to go on, but there were no bikes or book about bikes inside. During outside play, there were no balance bikes. And it really made me wonder. So I started checking, and I saw that current programs in BC only start in grade 4 and up, which to me seems really late. And then I started about the idea of combining daycare activities with balance bikes and activities around active transportation. So we really tried to shift in the program from the car culture I mentioned to bike culture. And we bring a lot of books about biking. We read a different book every day. We bring some cool bike toys, and we do some cool activities with mini bikes during our inside portion of the program. And why start early? And I know it's, Brian talked about it yesterday as well. It's really important to start early. The earlier you start in anything, pretty much, the more impact you have. Early experiences have important effect on later life decisions. Children will adapt to cycling as part of their daily life. And as we're talking about really little kids, cycling needs to be introduced in an enjoyable and playful way. And of course, children might influence their families as well to go on a bike ride. So when I was starting with developing Kids on Wheels, I checked what's out there in terms of cycling education for early childhood. And what I discovered was that there really not a whole lot, definitely not in North America. There are a few programs I looked at in Europe, especially in the UK, in Scotland, and in Denmark. I started doing a lot of networking and talking to people, trying to assess the need and demand for that kind of program. I started talking with daycare staff and teachers, and it really was well received. So I started with developing the curriculum for the age to 5 age group. And in the first few months, I also applied for grants, tried to source bikes and helmets from donations. And then we started with the pilot programs in a few daycares in Vancouver. The picture here is from one of our very early on sessions in the daycare in East Vancouver. And then we got feedback from the teachers themselves and from the families, and we implemented it for our later curriculum. So age-appropriate activities is something that we really need to take into account, especially when we work with very little and young children. For example, and it was mentioned quite a lot, children have short attention span. So the idea is to have lots of variety of examples of activities, different options, and to remember that children are different and that their interests are different too. Pretend play is a big part of their development. So one of our most popular areas is the mechanic corner that we set up, and kids practice pumping tubes. They pretend that they're fixing a flat tire. They really love it. And also one of the things, our program is a week long. We come to the daycare each day for a week for an hour and a half of activities. And we really see the progress that kids make in that period of time, especially for children who have never been on a bike before, till the end of the week where they're feeling quite confident on the bike. Also, the program is non-competitive. It is based on the idea that children learn best from one another and really influence from their peers. This is one of the activities that we do. It's actually one of my favorites. And the focus here is really on the we. Where can we ride our bikes to? We start these activities with a book that we read about a little girl who rides her bike to different places. We present a map of Vancouver, a very kind of illustrated map, and we try to ask the kids to identify places that they know. From there, we move on to the group activity of creating their own road maps of places where they bike to. All throughout, they brainstorm and discuss, and it's really interesting to hear their conversations of the places where they can ride their bikes to. So in the outside portion where we do our riding course, we use balance bikes. And in the recent years, there's really been a huge shift towards balance bikes. Definitely in comparison to training wheels. Here are just some of the advantages of balance bikes. They allow children to discover the balance and steering in their own time and comfort zone. Kids develop responsibility and better judgment of risk. It provides easy transitions to pedal bikes, usually without the need of training wheels. And in addition, balance bikes are really, really a lot of fun. So research studies found that the sooner children master balance, the earlier they will be able to to control the traditional bike. And that was a big study that was very recent, just came out from Portugal. We'll mention it again also. It's called Learning to Cycle from Training Wheels to Balance Bike. And it's very interesting. I really recommend reading it. And it's things that we've been seeing in our program all along. So it was great to see a big research study done specifically on balance bikes. So here in Kids on Wheels, we continue to develop the program. We get a lot of feedback and instructor input, and we always add more games and activities. We expanded to community center where we offer camp styles camp. One of the most recent development that we started last summer was a parent and taught version of the Kids on Wheels program. We call it the junior camp, and it's children as early as age 2 that come in with their parents. And we really focus here on parents' education as well, how to feed a balanced bike, how to feed the helmet to the child, and really getting the parents themselves getting more comfortable taking their kids out on a bike ride. We also expanded to other cities and communities, and we keep on expanding. And this is our mission, to introduce young children to this joy of cycling, an active, outdoor, sustainable lifestyle by empowering them to use balanced bike and engaging them through fun, hands-on activities. And that's me. Thank you very much. Please reach out to me with any questions. Please check our website and social media. And thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Rick, Ellen, and Maya. I am Dr. Marierose Mbinack. I am with DC Public Schools, and as Rick mentioned a little bit, I was part of the traffic guarding, first traffic guarding actually at Thomas Elementary, and I'll talk a little bit about that as I go along with my presentation. So the why, we started an initiative, and I'll talk about what that is, in 2014. But basically our why was, we felt it was important for all students to learn how to ride, all of our students to learn how to ride. So we started an initiative called, well, not an initiative, but actually a biking in the park curriculum that was tailored for our second graders to learn how to ride. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my journey. So in 2014, we were told, I was a teacher then, that we were going to start this program to teach students how to ride a bike, and everything sounded great. I was so excited until they told me that I was the one that would have to actually teach the students how to do this. A little bit embarrassed because the last time I think been on a bike was probably when I think I was 6 years old. So I hadn't ridden a bike since then. So I was quite embarrassed to say, I don't think I know how to ride a bike. How am I going to do this? So I shared this with Miriam, who is one of my colleagues now, that I don't think I can do this. I don't know how to ride a bike. And she mentioned that DDOT has this program that literally they can teach you in one day how to ride. In a few hours, you're going to be riding. Of course, I didn't believe them. Still fearful, like, are they really going to teach me how to ride in 4 hours? But they did. So these are the pictures from the class that I had taken. And basically what they did was they walked me through everything that my students would learn, right? So everything I was responsible for teaching my students, they made sure that I did. And that's how they taught me with, the gliding, finding my balance, everything that and basically that Ellen spoke about and Maya spoke about, I, at 30 something years old, did exactly that. And I think it was very beneficial for me because it allowed me to, I guess, kind of sympathize with some of the students, right, who would have to do what I did. I understood a lot more where they were. I understood their fear a lot more because I too was fearful, and I was able to kind of walk them or coach them through it because I just experienced exactly what they had experienced. And I say all that to say that teacher buy-in is extremely important with anything, with any curriculum that you're going to, you're thinking about beginning or anything that you have out there. You have to have people buying into your vision, right? What it is that you're trying to achieve. So starting with me, I had to learn, and that is the same thing that we do with our teachers. We have to make sure that our teachers were comfortable. And at that time, like I said, I was a teacher. So they made sure that I was comfortable with what I had to teach to my students, because believe it or not, students know, right? They know when you're just winging things and really don't know what's, you don't really know, or you're not comfortable or confident with what it is that you're trying to teach them. So we invest a lot of time in making sure that our teachers understand, our teachers participate in what it is that they're going to have to teach their students. We put them through the same course, they come in, it's about an 8-hour session where they come in, we set up obstacle courses, they, participate in the ride, they go over what the curriculum is. As I mentioned, we have a biking in the park program. And some of the pictures you saw were from our annual teacher training, because once again, teachers have to be very comfortable with, what it is that we want the program, how we want the program to be run and what it looks like. So we take that time to answer any of their questions. We support them after everything is done. We also provide them with toolkits, show them how to put the seats back on, how to deal with if there's a flat, how to change that tire. We just felt that, allowing them to be able to control certain things that may happen also built their confidence, because there's no way they could call us every 2 seconds to come in and how do you lift the seat up and things like that. So they were empowered to be able to do a lot of these things on their own. We differentiated instruction by within the lessons. We have 6 lessons. Our biking cornerstone has 6 lessons that the teachers were to implement to their students. And within those lessons, the students would learn how to sign, how to balance, how to go through an obstacle course. And differentiating instruction was done basically meeting the students where they were. The teachers would do a pre-assessment to figure out what level the students were on, were they advanced, were they novice riders, and just finding out what the students knew about riding before even touching the bikes. What we do with our schools actually is that we have half the school population, elementary school, will receive a fleet of bikes. You may keep them from, let's say, fall to spring. And then the bikes will then transfer to another school between, the summer, the spring till the summer. And then they'll keep those bikes from the fall and then switch again with another school. So we purchase through a grant and through our partnerships about 30 bikes, so that when the bikes are in schools, we don't have students just standing around waiting for a bike or for their turn, just making sure that all students, were able to ride and participate and not have this break of there's nothing for me to do. What should I do now? The end goal was basically, or is basically, that our students are able to participate in a ride at the end. So the culminating activity is that the students go on this trip, a bike ride. They're able to go on this bike ride, with their teacher and other members of the community. We have parents that volunteer, police officers that volunteer, whoever would like to volunteer. I think even Rick has helped us go on this bike ride. And they're able to, experience all the things that they experienced in class, but now on a trail. Let's talk about that. So, as you heard Maya mention and Ellen mention about age appropriateness. We found in the beginning, when we started our program, we did not have balance bikes for our early childhood program. And then we found that by the time the students were coming to us in second grade, as I mentioned earlier, the lessons were only 6 lessons were developed. But we found out that our students needed more than that. Some of our teachers see their students once a week, some twice a week, some every other week. But we found out that because some of them were coming to us in the second grade and then having to just this little bit of time to learn how to ride, they weren't gaining the best of what the program had to offer. So at that moment, we kind of went backwards and added balance bikes, right? We added balance bikes to our early childhood program. And once we did that, we found that having those balance bikes and our students being able to start earlier on allowed them, by the time they were in the second grade, they were really mentally ready and had grasped a lot of those skills that we wanted them to have. And they were kind of more prepared by the time they came to us in the second grade for the ride or for this ride and having to learn how to properly ride and then go on this trail. So the successes of our program, parents love the program. We've had a lot of parents volunteer, and also we've built a lot of partnerships with people wanting to know what we're doing and people coming to visit our schools and seeing, how we're implementing our programs. We've had people from across the nation wanting to hear exactly what we did and how we did it. We have 80% of our students by the end that were actually proficient riders. And I mentioned before that our teachers would do a pre-assessment, and then at the end, they would also come back and assess the students to just make sure that they did, move from being novice to a little bit more advanced. And then also with Muriel Bowser's Vision Zero grant, which is basically aims at pedestrian and bicycle transportation safety for all, all of those partnerships has also built the program that we have in the DC Public Schools. Also with the pop-up shop, what that did for us, we would have parents, people in the neighborhood were able to bring their bikes, old bikes, new bikes, whatever it is, bring them to our schools and get their bikes repaired for free, right on the spot. So that was another way for us to build on the program that we had and also, get the community involved. I want to talk a little bit about having that traffic garden at Thomas Elementary School real quick, because what it did for us, it built confidence for our students, just for them being allowed to practice what they would practice on the road was very beneficial to our students. We put out yield signs, stop signs. So literally by the time they were out on this trail, they were actually more confident and comfortable with themselves. This program has been one of the best programs for me as a teacher, because it helped me learn how to ride again. And then also just the benefits for that in speaking to a lot of our parents and a lot of our students. I have one student that I'm just gonna, I remember didn't know how to ride, but her mother told her that if she learned how to ride, she'd get a bike. So her goal was, I need to learn how to ride this bike before Christmas. She learned how to ride the bike. I videotaped her. But I think what brought tears to my eyes was the mother. She came in and she thanked me because she mentioned how she worked 2 jobs. And she just didn't imagine how her daughter was ever going to learn how to ride because she didn't have the time to do it. So that kind of just brings it all back to how, what we do in schools and how, the bridging of what they're learning also benefits them. And we're just, benefits their lives. And we're also supporting a lot of families that want to do more with their kids and just may not have the opportunity to do so. Some of our challenges, not everyone has a traffic garden. So, the students have to ride in neighborhoods. May not be as safe as we'd like it to be, but they're learning, right? They're still learning about those, the signs. They're learning about, looking both ways, how to share the road with other cars and other pedestrians. Differences by school year. Basically, as time went on, we saw the improvements, right? We made adjustments. Like I said, we added balance bikes. We knew that balance bikes were better versus training wheels. So we switched to making sure that we had balance bikes available for early childhood. Storage space. Not all schools have the same amount of space. So just finding out where could they store these. So we provided them with rack and then with locks so they can lock their bikes. So just making sure that, everyone has some type of equity in terms of providing to make sure that all our students have what they need. As I mentioned, the data, this is some of the last data we've had since the pandemic. Just making sure that, basically that our program has been successful and beneficial for our students, that our students are learning, and that it's extremely important for them to be able to learn how to ride now so that, as they get older, they're not like me learning later on in years. So with that being said, I'm going to end with a video just putting it all together of how they were able to learn at Thomas's Traffic Garden. I like the way you're stopping. What are we looking for when we look both ways? If a car's coming. So what should we do if we see someone walking? Stop. You should what? Stop. You should stop. Let them go past and then you go, right? All right. Why is it important for us to get our helmets on? So you won't bust your head on the ground, right? Back to you, Rick.
There were some questions from the group today. I think Allison indicated we sort of we're at our time limit, and so I'm going to collect those questions and answer them in Whova underneath the early childhood tagline. And we'll also post it on our the Early Childhood Mobility Coalition website, which is Kids Walk Bike. So HTTP, obviously, Kids Walk Bike. And we'll have that out there over the next week or so you can actually visit there and get information on these questions that you had or ask more questions about the programs. So thanks to the wonderful presenters today. Those are great detail on developing these programs, but it's so important that our curriculum be developed in a way that is appropriate for the children, and that's age group 0 to 8, which is such a large group of kids for us to bring into the cycling community.
All right, thank you, everyone.